Item 1607 from Deputy Bobby Aylward, dated the 1st of October, requesting the committee to examine the operation, financial arrangements and oversight of the school transport service. I propose we'll include this on our work programme. Do Deputy Aylward want to comment at this stage?
I understand there was a report done, but they were never brought in as witnesses, were they the bus or the department? They were never brought in front of the PAC here.
Okay.
Were they never brought in here before, were they?
Mr. McCarthy, fill us in on the background, I think.
Yeah, well, I did a special report on the provision of school transport. It addresses responsibilities of the department. Bus Éireann per se isn't answerable to the committee. So I'm not sure quite how you would deal with that.
When was that report done?
The report was published or was presented on the 25th of October. So
what year?
Last year.
Who requested that report?
17.
Who requested that report?
I decided to do that report.
You decided yourself?
Yeah.
Okay, so
I think it may just have been overlooked in the crush of other issues last year.
As a report to us within the last year,
yes.
One item that the PAC just hasn't got to yet.
That's
but you
correct.
have done a report that we
have a report,
to,
yeah.
Well, it's clear cut that.
That's what I'm asking this, because at this time of year especially, the problems we're having out there, and just, I think there's 350 children around the country are on concession tickets that have been left on the side of the road. Right. And that's my concern. I have a particular concern in my own area, my own constituency, my own parish, where 11 children have been left behind, and that's why I raised this matter, and I think it raised its head at this time of year. I'm just wondering, is the rollout of the system that's in place now is fit for purpose and doesn't need to be reviewed, and maybe that's what we should look at here on your report, the Control of Children's report. We should look at this and see if we get value for money as well. Okay, well, if there's the CNAG report on it since last year, we have to look at it as far as I'm concerned.
I think given the elapse of time, it may be useful to get the department to update the key measures in the report, if they can.
Right, so when we're setting a date, we'll ask for when we come to our work programme, and we'll set a date as soon as practicable to deal with that.
Will that be sooner rather than later, or will it be
We'll come to the work programme in a few minutes, right?
Okay, so.
Yeah, so but it certainly has to be on a work programme, right? And we'll have a discussion on that now in a few minutes. And Deputy Aylward next.
Thank you, Chairman. I welcome Professor Boyle and Teagasc here, and good to see you here again for your annual audit. I know you're doing a good job as far as farmers are concerned, being one myself who avails of your service, and very appreciative of it. I just want to follow up on the last question by my colleague here in Kilkenny, because I'm from Kilkenny naturally. The death of the animals, is it because of the intensity in the farm and the way the system is working, and can you evolve on why they died and what reason what these animals were caused dead over the storm? Is it because they hadn't protection, we say, in building, or was the land too exposed? Because I know the system in place, and it's very intensive, and I know it's probably a lot of experimenting going on there as well.
Well, Deputy, there wouldn't be much experimenting really going on. It's a fairly straightforward enough model.
It's a dairy system, isn't it?
Oh, it is, yeah. It's designed to be a top-class dairy farm.
That's right.
Based on minimising investment and minimising production costs. We have commissioned a review along with the other partners, and that review is not yet complete. So I think it would be inappropriate for me to get into what is a draft review at this point. But the episodes that occurred due primarily, as far as we can see, to the storm event itself. It was an extraordinary event in terms of the build-up of snow and drifts over a very short period of time. And even though the farm had taken preventive measures, they clearly weren't sufficient. Now, in the wider context of the overall animal health stats on the farm and the mortality statistics, the episodes, while utterly regrettable, are not significant. I mean, the overall health status of the animals and the mortality. The
animals are kept outdoor mostly, aren't they?
They are, yeah. I mean,
they're not like what we call traditional, where they're brought in.
No, but obviously there's housing for pregnant animals and so on, and for young calves. But that's something that, again, that's at the heart of the review. And we would hope that there will be lessons coming forward. One of the reviewers, for example, we brought in was from Canada, who was familiar with dairy farming under extreme weather conditions. We would hope to benefit from the insights presented from that review. I should say I've a long-standing commitment to the Agriculture Committee to present the results of that review when the whole thing is finalised.
I just want to move on. I'm in touch on things that Deputy Deering as well, because just on the 1,800 hectares that you have, 1,800 I think you said they have in hectares, is most of that for land owned, that's land based, that you use for research purposes and like a Kildare, etc.
Yeah, I mean as I say, now that's not, and in fact I don't have that data, I don't have the utilised agricultural area because there is a lot of forest on many of those lands around the country. But yes, we have 6 research sites, the likes of Moore Park, for example. If I take Moore Park as an example, we have 175 hectares farmed that we own at Moore Park. We also have quite an amount of land lease. I'm not counting lease land, obviously, in that total. The 1,800 hectares is owned land.
In lease land, I thought, do you lease land to?
Oh, you do, yeah.
To farmers? Or?
Yeah. No, we lease land from farmers.
Oh, sorry, lease land in. Oh, yes, sorry, yes. I thought it was the other way.
We lease land from farmers, like, for example, the famous Curtains Farm in Moore Park is leased. On the agricultural colleges, the land on the agricultural colleges, if I say, for example, in Kildalton, we own 158 hectares there in Kildalton. That's primarily used for educational purposes, for the training of students. Yeah. But we've taken the decision in recent years to also locate significant research projects on all of our college farms. So in Clonakilty College, for example, we have a major project on the way there on the use of clover in ryegrass and ryegrass swards, which has been generating really interesting results that have been of international significance. We also actually have located on the Kildalton site what we call a sustainable farm. And our intention there is, it's in early days yet, is to establish a farm that meets all of this demanding sustainability requirements right across the spectrum, but yet is commercial. So that's a research project. And of course at Ballyhaise for several years, Ballyhaise College, we've had a research programme underway there on dairying in the region, which again has established that it's possible to generate significant profits in a more challenging landscape, shall we say, than Moore Park. And so that's been the plan, that we would have a research programme also underway in the colleges.
Can I ask you, have you identified land, due to the directive from the government recently about semi-state land, particularly with the housing crisis that we have you have land or property that would be suitable for sale for housing? I know it's mostly rural with yourselves, but are they land that you own that could be used for, say, affordable or social housing? And have you identified those sites? And you mentioned, the Controller and other gentlemen mentioned 3 sites here that disclose that in page 106, disclose that this includes land for resale, 1 site in Limerick, Galway and Cavan, 2 sites in County Dublin. The total carrying value of 914,000. I just want to ask you about those that the Controller and other gentlemen identified.
Well, first of all, the valuations there are historic valuations. But there would be there are 2 sites in Dublin that potentially the state could, if it wished, consider.
Would that be a priority for Teagasc to identify?
Oh, well, if I can just sort of elaborate on that. The site in Kinseely, which I mentioned earlier in reply to Deputy Deering, that site, we intend to put that on the market. Now, it doesn't have planning permission at the moment for residential use. Yeah, it's not zoned for residential use at the minute. But that's a possibility. So I think there's about 12 hectares in that, is it?
Yeah, about 25 acres.
Yeah, about 12 hectares or so. So that is actually going to go on the market and potentially could be used for...
That would be 1 site could be used
for social housing. The other site is in Dublin also, is the Ashtown site, which is there in Castleknock. There's about 12 hectares there at the minute. That is chock-a-block with activity right at the minute, because as I did say, we moved all of our activity down from Kinseely, down the motorway to Ashtown, and it's a hive of activity. It's absolutely top programme priority. We have 3 different types of activity going on there at the minute. It's the location for our meat centre. All our meat research that Teagasc does is located in Ashtown. And we work very closely with the production research in Grange on beef. We also have, it's a centre also for our horticultural activity, and we've only recently invested in a number of state-of-the-art glasshouses. We also use it for our education programmes as an adjunct to our facility in Botanic Gardens for horticultural education. It's also the location of Meat Technology Ireland, and in the last year, again with the pressures from Brexit and everything else, and with support from the Department and the Minister, we've invested substantially in facilities and equipment for the prepared consumer food sector. So, Deputy, this is very much programme priority, and every inch of space is absolutely dedicated at the moment to top priority research programme.
Can I move on, because I want to ask you a few other. The father shortage, I just want to ask your opinion on the father shortage. Because we're talking about there in August, September, about 30% of a father shortage. And now the Minister even said last week that that is now down to 10%. What's your opinion of it? As Teagasc as advisory body, what's your opinion on where farmers are at in father shortage? And will we have a continuing ongoing problem in the winter ahead, like we had last year, we say, due to the bad weather and then the coastal drought that came after that?
Okay, well, I don't have
just a general opinion.
Yeah, look, the opinion is we have done 2 father surveys, and Teagasc has coordinated that. We're members and we coordinate the interagency father committee that was established by the Minister to deal with this and to respond to this situation, the father situation. We did a survey in around June, and it was showing, I think that's where your 30% figure might have come from, a deficit in relation to fodder that was available. We refreshed and did a new survey more recently, and there was a significant improvement between the first and the second. The first one is to say the average is about 30, of course there's a range about that. The second survey we did came in with an average deficit of about 12%. Of course there is a range about that.
What date was that survey done?
I'm trying to think about that now. It was done probably 2 weeks before the ploughing.
Right, because I met a good few silage trailers through Laois last weekend. So
well,
they're still out there.
No, it's cut up so good.
It's improved. I'd say, if anything, it's improved since then.
A bit since.
No, it has. And look, it's important that we get. Look, this is our best available information here. It's given completely independently, and we believe that that's the situation, and it has improved. And in fact, a lot of farmers probably plan to graze on a lot longer this year if the weather still holds up. Having said all of that, of course, we're very conscious that there's an enormous range. I mean, one thing that I found this year travelling around the country, there's huge variation on this very small island. Between the western seaboard, a line up from Clare right up to Donegal, and I did make that trip, compared to the southeast of the country, Wexford in particular, parts of Kilkenny, parts of my own county, Tipperary. You think you were on a different planet almost. So the challenge is to help farmers, as we see it, to help farmers manage a difficult situation that some of them will be in over the winter. We've clear sets of in the drying off period. We believe, we care. I would say there is an issue that I'm quite concerned about, Chairman, right, is that these more frequent and they do occur. They will be more severe. So we're sitting down now with our research colleagues and saying, how do we need to adjust the kind of recommendations around the farm model which is most resilient, given that kind of expectation that these events will emerge?
Can I ask that, the push is on for harvest to 2020 to 2025 and to increase and produce more. Are we pushing farmers to the extent, particularly in the dairy industry, that we have too much stock and we haven't the capacity, yes, particularly with climate change and the weathers we're meeting now and the difference in climate change and the seasons have changed? Are we pushing too much without thinking about the consequences of? It's all right having 300-400 cows and up the cows, but to carry and to nurture them cows and make sure they have enough to for viability. Are you worried about that?
I guess one fact should be pointed out: there are fewer cows in the country now, fewer livestock than there were in the late 90s. That's a reality. What has clearly happened is expansion is taking place over a very short period of time, particularly in the dairy farms, in certain areas. We would be concerned because, and Teagasc sometimes gets criticised, I would say this unfairly, for advocating an unsustainable expansion strategy. We did nothing of the kind. We said time and time again to farms, look to your own farm gate first, improve your efficiency before you increase your cow numbers. Now that message doesn't always get across, particularly in a rapidly changing situation where farmers may have been used to providing fodder for 50, 60, 70 cows, and they're doubling their cows over a couple of years, and they just took a chance. We're saying it's time to pull back, look at improving your grassland. We still have the situation, Deputies, you're well aware, where on dairy farms the average utilisation of grass is only 7 tonnes a hectare. The capacity, and we know this from pasture-based Ireland now, we're able to track grass growth all over the country, is double that. So we're trying to...
might work this year with the drought, particularly...
No, but if farmers had been up to capacity, right, before the drought and before this year, in producing to what is possible, like this, we can double grass production on most farms, and pasture-based Ireland has demonstrated that. We have a Grass 10 programme, which is a 4-year programme supported by the Minister and a number of other private companies as well involved in that. And we're focusing all our efforts around efficiency. But if a farmer clearly is not capable of generating the efficiency in terms of grass production for the stock that he has on farm, that is not a sustainable position. And that's the clear message that we're trying to send out. But I admit it can be difficult at times to get across that message.
Can I just ask you, we're on stock, can I ask you the suckler herd and the decline of the suckler herd and, you know, the viability of a suckler, especially suckler's beef? Could you pass any comment on you know, the decline and, you know, get young farmers to actually continue in suckling and to make it viable? I think you know, livelihood and the amount of that's realised out of suckler beef now is hard to survive. And what's your comment on that as research?
You're absolutely right, Deputy. The income levels from suckler farming are, without the basic payment scheme, just farmers couldn't survive. The typical income from the Teagasc National Farm Survey on a suckler farm is about 10,000. Family farming is about €10,000, and that's including that involves mainly the basic payment to the farmer. So clearly there's a viability issue. When you analyse the problem, it's not difficult to explain why it's at that level, because you have quite a spread of people engaged in suckler farming. Very few of them would be full-time commercial type farmers. A lot of them are elderly people who probably are stepping down maybe from a career in dairying or maybe in fattening of animals or whatever, and they like to be involved in farming. A lot of them are part-time farmers, where they're not dependent on the income from their suckler enterprise for their livelihoods. And so it's a very challenging area, and there is no escaping the fact this has not happened today or yesterday. I'm in this business a fair long time now at this stage, and we've always had this problem within the suckler industry. Now, the fattening sector is a little better, but you know, it's highly variable. But the suckler industry has a huge difficulty. What we're trying to emphasise here is that we can have a win-win pathway for dry stock farmers from dairy. But it's going to take a while, I think, for a mindset change. For example, there's huge opportunities now for farmers, dry stock farmers, who are expert people at managing cattle and herding and so on, to rear young animals. And there's already a small number of farmers engaging in that, and they're doing very well. There's also opportunities, in our view, for, which was much more common prior to the dairy quota, for farmers to fatten animals coming off the dairy herd.